Coding for Noobs.
Coding for Noobs.
Coding for Noobs.
Hey guys, so I learned VBA a few months ago in order to be able to find matching values across multiple worksheets and place the matching values in a particular column. For this example, that means record who liked a particular person and place the person who liked them's name on the appropriate person sheet. So in this particular case, if the value in cell C3 or the person's ID number is equal to any one of the ID numbers under like person number column, that we want to place the name of the person who's crushing on them, which happens to correspond to the sheet name, under the people who like them column. Simple enough, right? So if we think about this on a super intuitive level, we're taking that C3 value, searching through all the cells under the like persons column on multiple sheets, and if they match, then placing it within the people who like them column like we just showed. So it sounds like we're going to need 3 loops here nested within a select case statement. So for our first loop, we're going through each of the sheets which are assigned to a particular person and thus have a corresponding ID in C3. In my case, it happens to start with the third sheet and ends with the last sheet. So let's go ahead and set this first part up now. For using the for next loop, we need to define a variable for that loop, dim m as long, for m equals 3 because that's the index number of the sheet we're starting with, and then ending with the last index sheet. For finding the last index sheet, I'm going to create another variable which will count the number of sheets in this workbook and thereby give me the last sheet. Dim a is long, a equals sheets.count. And then we can use that variable that we just defined within our for next loop for n equals 3 to a next m. Next, we're going to be defining a variable which can reference that C3's value, aka the ID number, so we can load it up to compare to the like person's value column across multiple sheets. Dim x as long. Right below the for next statement, we'll define this variable. X equals sheets m dot cells 3, 3, with m being the index number of the sheet, which is encased within the for next loop. Since we're not creating an object here, rather assigning a value, we don't use the set statement. So just within that first loop, we're going to need another loop which will reference the index number of the third sheet and ending with the last to set us up to look through the like persons column throughout this workbook. We'll define another variable which can be used for our second for next loop, dim b as long, for b equals 3 to a. A was that variable that we defined earlier which will specify the last sheet in our range. Then finally, within our last loop, we will be searching within that like person's number column, starting obviously with cell A5 on each of these sheets and moving down to the last filled in cell. We'll define another variable to use in the last for next loop, dim z as long, for z equals 5, which is the starting row reference index number to the like person column. This is where it begins to get a little bit more tricky. We got to find that last occupied cell in each individual sheet. So we're going to define another variable which will be able to be flexible in referencing that for us, dim w as long. We're going to be defining this variable just below the second for next loop, which this loop has us looking at an individual sheet so that it can load up the index number of the last occupied cell row in the particular sheet so we can use it in the third for next loop. In this sense, it can be very flexible for us because we never know how many people an individual liked. It could be 2, could be 5. W equals sheets B dot cells rows dot count 1 dot end xl up dot row. Great, now we got our last row defined for each sheet we need to look through. For z equals 5 to w, next z. Next, we're going to be creating another variable so we can reference each individual cell that we're looking at along the like person column. Dim y is long. We'll be defining that variable just below the for z or the third loop. Y equals sheets b dot cells z1. With z being that third for next loop that references the index number of the row within the like person number column, and b being that loop right above it which references the index number of the sheet we're looking on. Then finally, I know it's been a lot, I'm going to be using the select case statements to compare whether the cell in the like persons column is equal to the ID number on another sheet. I personally like the select case statements a lot better than the if-then statements because it just looks cleaner. Select case X and select. With X, remember being that variable we defined which references the person's ID number on a given sheet. Case Y, which is pretty much saying if Y is equal to X. In the case that y is true, then sheets m.cells,3.value is equal to sheets b.name. With m, remember being the first loop, which referenced the index number of the sheet we're looking at C3 on. You probably noticed that I left the row index number blank, because now we have to come up with another variable which will allow us to find the first non-occupied cell under the people who like them column. Dim c as long. C equals sheets m dot cells rows dot count, comma 3 dot end xl up dot row. Now that we've found the last occupied cell, we need to go one below. So I'll add offset 1, 0. Great. Now that we've found the first non-occupied cell within that row, we'll plug back in C to the earlier value statement. Sheets m.cells c,3.value equals sheets b.name, with b being the index number of the person's sheet who liked them. So if all this works, then we should get the following results. And that's it. Let's check our results on a few pages to demonstrate. Alright, great. Looks like it worked. One word to the wise though, I didn't put in any error handlers, so if your code encounters something that is not a number or long data type, such as text, you're going to get an error 13 statement. I'll put a string data type in one of the cells to demonstrate.
This is a test. This is only a test.
You can use an on-error resume next statement right above the y statement to allow the function to keep going. And that's it. Let's check the pages again to demonstrate. Cool. It looks like it worked. Thanks for watching.